Do we love or do we love?
Yep.
Do we love how much dill there is?
Tastes like a Jewish sandwich of sorts. No?
Welcome back to Hit the Kitch. This is part of our Thanksgiving mini-series in which I teach you 3 iconic but slightly different takes on Thanksgiving dishes. In this episode, we're gonna make stuffing gratin, which is basically a mashup of kind of all of the dishes that are normally found on a Thanksgiving or oftentimes found on a Thanksgiving table. So I was like, why do we have to make 4 or 5 different dishes? Why can't we just mash them all up together and just make one iconic casserole that sort of represents all of them? And that's what this dish is. So it's stuffing because there are like big craggy croutons made of stale bread. It is a gratin because the bread and everything else in it cooks in cream and gruyere and parm. And then it's like a creamed greens or a green bean casserole because it's piled with green cruciferous veggies. And we're gonna chop it all up and toss it all together and then bake it in a skillet. And it's gonna basically satisfy all of your Thanksgiving casserole table needs. That's fun, right? Okay, so what you'll need for this dish is 2 large white onions or yellow onions, 10 garlic cloves, a couple of pounds of cruciferous vegetables. So I'm using Brussels sprouts, broccolini, and broccoli. 1 bunch of kale, some heavy cream, some Gruyere cheese, some grated parm, lemons, dill, salt and pepper, olive oil. Okay, so the first thing with any stuffing is you want to start with stale bread. I don't have stale bread because this is a fresh loaf of Bub and Grandma's sesame sourdough, aka best bread ever. But that's no problem. I'm just going to dry it out in the oven. So I'm gonna take like a quarter of this. Like I said, this is not just a stuffing. There's a lot of other stuff going on. So we don't need this whole loaf of bread, but maybe a quarter. And cut it into big chunks and then tear these into craggy crouton shapes, maybe this much. And I have my oven preheated to 300. And we're gonna throw it in there and just like let the bread dry out. The reason that you stale bread or you dry out bread for a stuffing is because if you wick away all the moisture that's already in the bread by drying it out, it allows for more liquid or moisture to then be absorbed back into it when you bake it. So you're basically just making space for whatever yummy liquid you're putting in your stuffing, or in this case, in our gratin. So there's gonna be a lot of cream and cheese, and we want that to be able to be absorbed into the bread. And if we used fresh bread, it would just like swim around and get super soggy and it wouldn't be able to soak any of it up. So just tear them into big pieces and then throw them in a 300-degree oven to dry out until they're just like hard. Okay? Okay, so that's the bread element. Let's talk about the other elements of the gratin. So a gratin is usually cooked in cream, but we're going to build like a creamy base, basically, which is gonna start with garlic and onions. Okay, so we're thinly slicing all of these onions. The recipe calls for 2 onions, but these are little onions, so we're using 3 onions because we adapt. This feels like a lot of onions now. Okay, so I just sliced 3 small onions, and I also thinly sliced 10 garlic cloves. And we are gonna go over and get them sauteing to make some space on our cutting board to cut the rest of the vegetables. And so we're gonna start the gratin base in a pot. Like most things, we're gonna start with olive oil. A couple of glugs, a couple of tablespoons. We're over like medium-high heat, and I'm bringing in all the onions and all the garlic. All right, so classic sweat happening over here, which is sauteing vegetables in oil but not browning them. So We're adding salt at the beginning, and we're cooking them just to expel some of their own water, but not to caramelize them. Man, am I crying. I just chopped 3 onions over there without not a drop. You know, just keeping it interesting. Okay, so as these cook, we keep an eye on them, and we're gonna cut our brassicas. So what is a brassica? A brassica is part of a vegetable group that includes cauliflower, broccoli, broccolini, cabbage, broccoli rabe, Brussels sprouts, did I say that? And so you can use any mix of them in this recipe, which is what makes it so easy. And you just kind of like chop them all up into big pieces. You'll use like 1.5 pounds. I'm gonna do broccoli, I'm gonna do broccolini, and I'm gonna do Brussels. But you can literally use whatever you want. Okay, 1.5 pounds, and then I'm stripping the leaves of this kale. So there's a lot of green things in this because there's also a lot of cream and bread and cheese, and it's like, we gotta balance that shit out a little bit. Okay, so in the meantime, while we're waiting on those to sweat, we've chopped all of our veg and our greens. Now we're gonna grate some cheese. So I'm gonna grate some gruyere. You could also use cheddar. Probably like 6 ounces of cheese, 5 or 6 ounces of cheese. A big heaping 1.5 cups. And then we're gonna start building the cream sauce. So here we go, back over. You can see that the onions have really cooked down here now. They've lost a lot of their volume. They're starting to smell very oniony. Let's make sure they're seasoned. What do you know? They're not. More salt. Okay, so I'm turning the heat down now. It was over like medium high to begin with, just because we were getting things going, giving it all a jump start. Then you turn it down once the pot really starts to heat up. And it's been about like 8 or 10 minutes, and so now I'm gonna add 2.5 cups of heavy cream. That was 2. Here's another half. So in our cream mixture now, we've got garlic, onions, heavy cream, salt, pep. I'm gonna add some red pepper flakes just for like a little bit of spice. Okay, so that has reduced for like 2 to 3 minutes. It's getting kind of thick. Yeah, we're definitely a lot crunchier than we were. And now we turn off the heat and we basically just mix everything together in this Dutch oven, and then we're gonna transfer it once it's all nice and coated over here. So the vegetables. So to this, I'm gonna add all of this grated gruyere and a couple big handfuls of grated parm, and mix it all up. This is not overheat right now. It's gonna go in the oven. It's gonna get plenty of heat in a second. I'm just kind of trying to like evenly distribute everything. And you could bake it right out of this Dutch oven, but I like to transfer it to a cast iron skillet because then you get like more browning. Here come the croûtes. Okay, so we're stirring in all of those big croutons that we made, mixing them all together, always tasting. I think it's seasoned. And now I'm adding some finely grated lemon zest. And the reason that I'm not adding lemon juice is because we have a lot of cream in here and it's gonna go in the oven. And if I were to put a lot of lemon juice into this, it would curdle cream and we'd have a splitty kind of mess on our hands when it came out of the oven. And then the last thing is just stirring in a bunch of chopped dill. As you guys know, I'm a big dill girl, and dill is fresh. So it is nice to add something like dill in addition to the lemon zest so that it's not all so heavy and rich. If you don't like dill, chopped parsley would be great. Chopped chives would be great. Cilantro might take you in a different direction, but if that's your vibe, go for it. Just something fresh. So we've got our broccoli and our Brussels and our kale. We have our cream sauce. We've got our croutons and our cheese in there, our lemon zest. I'm adding all of the dill. Stir it up. And then this is where the maneuver starts to get wonky because now I'm gonna take kind of a really, really, really hot, heavy pot and transfer it into another one, but we totally got this. Looks nice. All right, here we go. I mean, I feel like that was pretty graceful. Okay, and then just spreading it all out. Give it a little height. Evenly distribute. And then into a 375-degree oven for like an hour, and it's gonna get all bubbly, and it's gonna reduce, but we'll keep an eye on it. Now come look in here, because in here we have a half finished gratin that is bubbling and burbling and starting to brown, and it's looking really good, but I want to give it a little bit longer to get a little bit more color on top from all that cheese. But look at how yummy those croutons look. Don't mind if I do. Okay, so we're probably like 15 minutes out on that. Hi, honey. She's so scared of a camera. Look at her. Wieners. She's literally hiding behind me. Like, okay, we're checking on the gratin. Burbling and browned. The croutons are all crispy. I think we're good. You could, Thanksgiving talk, make this in advance, take it to this point, cool it down, whatever, bring it over to your family's house, throw it back in the oven for 5 or 10 minutes and let it heat back up. Like, this doesn't need to be served immediately. It's a hearty dish that can sustain a room temperature hangout and a reheat, and will be no problem. But look at this yummy edge. So we need this to rest because we have burned our esophagi enough times already today.
Oh,
There's something else.
that one was Bernie.
Tuna break. It's perfectly custardy on the inside. Like, the cream has reduced so much that it's like not swimming in cream, but it's also not dry. Like, it's custardy, everything is well bound in the cheesy, creamy mixture. The bread is soggy on the bottom, crispy on the top, the best way. Cheese is browned and burbled. The kale is crispy, like these leaves. That's why we did those like mountains in the volume when we put it all together, because crispy kale. Is it obnoxious to just like love your own food, kind of, low key? You know I'm a dill freak. There's a lot of dill in there. I feel like that's what makes it special, because otherwise it's just like cream and greens. For me, it's just like the trifecta of all casserole dishes, and the only one you really need at Thanksgiving, besides the mashed potatoes. Look at this little crispy croute. It's so good. If it ain't measured, it ain't Molly. That works. If it ain't accurate, it ain't Molly. No, that's the opposite. No. If it ain't inaccurate, it ain't Molly. That's it, that's it. Oh my God.